Hey friends, thank you so much for joining me at Daily Treasure today as we continue in our series called A Steadfast Woman in a Shifting World. And as I've already said repeatedly, our world is definitely shifting, isn't it? I think the needs of our broken hearts across the world as we listen to the news and we hear about those whose lives are being devastated in ways they could never have imagined, our own hearts break. And we long to have a word of encouragement from someone ahead of us, from the Lord, or maybe God is calling you and me to be that person, that messenger of hope. And I pray that this series will encourage you to take on that calling. Today's devotional is called Weeping as He Went, and today's treasure is from 2 Samuel chapter 15, verse 30. But David continued up the Mount of Olives, weeping as he went. His head was covered, and he was barefoot. All the people with him covered their heads too, and were weeping as they went up. Tradition tells us that David wrote Psalm 62 in the middle of devastating heartbreak. His son Absalom rebelled against his father, plotting to take his throne. When David turned to trusted friends for help, he learned that they had joined his beloved son Absalom in his betrayal. David could trust no one. Truly, the earth shook beneath David's feet. He worshiped God, dedicating his life to his service. And David knew God loved him, that he was God's son and anointed king of Israel. Years before this betrayal, David had experienced forgiveness when he acknowledged his great sin against God for his adultery with Bathsheba and murder of her husband. But though forgiven, his sin was always before him, as we read in Psalm 51, acting as a fence to remind him of the consequences of disobeying God, but also as a reminder of God's supernatural and unconditional love for him. He experienced great blessings in battles and in leading Israel, yet consequences from his sins followed the king. At a time when he should have been able to enjoy God's blessings and rest in God's protection, his son Absalom, his own flesh and blood, plots to take him down, to not just take his throne, but to murder him, his own son. The scriptures describe how Absalom intentionally created division in God's people, cultivating a base of supporters ready to make him king, as we read in 2 Samuel 15, verse 6b. So Absalom stole the hearts of the men of Israel. And in 2 Samuel 15, verse 12b, and the conspiracy grew strong, and the people with Absalom kept increasing. Wow. Can you think of a situation where that has happened to you, or maybe someone that you love? When David heard that Absalom and his army were coming to kill him and take the throne, David fled the city with his people. Note the deep grief in David. This, my friends, is a broken-hearted father. But David continued up the Mount of Olives, weeping as he went. His head was covered, and he was barefoot. All the people with him covered their heads too, and were weeping as they went up. 2 Samuel 15, verse 30. Don't miss the fact that in grief, David fled to the Mount of Olives, the place where God was worshipped. He fled to the Lord, not away from him, as we read in 2 Samuel 7, verse 32. While David was coming to the summit, where God was worshipped, behold, Hushai the Archite came to meet him with his coat torn and dirt on his head. You know, friends, sometimes when faced with crushing news or a shift in our world, we are tempted to run away from our church. After the death of our son, I dreaded our first Sunday back to church, but I longed to be with God's people. To this day, I feel badly for those who watched me cry every Sunday, through every hymn. I walked in crying. I cried while there. I left crying. But something supernatural, slowly but surely, took place as I sat in a church pew, hungry for hope. In time, I realized broken people surrounded me. I knew their stories of how disappointments shattered relationships, terrifying medical news, and even betrayal had shifted the earth beneath their feet. And yet they came every Sunday, sang every song, sometimes raising their hands into surrender to our Lord, tears streaming down their cheeks. And God touched me through each one. Their worship encouraged me to do the same. It is not surprising that David rushed to the place of worship in the middle of disaster. Throughout the Psalms, he repeatedly declares his hunger for God's presence. "O God, you are my God. Earnestly I seek you. My soul thirsts for you. My flesh faints for you, as in a dry and weary land where there is no water." Psalm 63:1. Friends, when the world shifts beneath your feet, run to the presence of our God and his family, and by faith declare that he alone is your rock, rest, rescue, and refuge. And, O Lord, you are our rock, rest, rescue, and refuge. We trust you to be all of this to us. When we falter in our trust, give us faith to believe. Hey friends, thanks so much for joining us for this Daily Treasure podcast. And I want to remind you that as you are listening, you can know that there are women all over the world who are listening with you. Every single day, this podcast is available, and we have a written devotional that is sent every single day of the year. Of course, people can access it free of charge, but you know that nothing is really free, and there are costs to producing this podcast and this devotional. And we are so grateful for those of you who are joining with us to help underwrite the cost. And we want to invite others to join us as well. When you give a gift, we will donate a copy of Treasures in Darkness to a local funeral home. And in fact, we have put together a grief care bag for the funeral director to use their discretion in sharing with especially bereaved parents. So when you give, you are giving twice, to help produce Daily Treasure and also to help turn the heart of a grieving parent toward Jesus. So again, thank you for joining us. You can go to markinc.org, markinc.org, where you can safely give. I look forward to being with you tomorrow.